Hello, I am Reverend Bobby, and welcome to the journey. Today on the journey, I have a longtime friend, longtime 50 plus. We met when we were at school in Atlanta. Um, Pastor Clarence Brown. Pastor Brown, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderfully well, my good brother. How are you, sir?
I am excellent today. And while Brother Clarence is doing wonderfully well, and I am excellent. I want you guys to be excellent too. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, Gospel of Robert, capital GOSPELOF, capital ROBERT, no spaces. You got to put the at sign in the front and go to the page and subscribe so you get notifications and stuff when this good stuff go up for you to hear. So my brother Clarence, from a long time, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of a snippet on who and what Clarence is.
Okay. You ought not give a preacher a platform and say shortly, because I said, well, before I take my seat, I
well
got one more thing to say. Um,
a
uh,
friend of mine and I heard someone trial close at least 4 times this past Sunday. So have at it, my brother.
once again, my name is Clarence Brown. I am more affectionately known in my circles as Sonny Brown. Back in Atlanta at Morehouse College, it was Sonny and Bobby running around, not knowing what we were doing, and were probably the two least likely to pursue ministry as a vocational goal. But that just shows you God can use anybody and anything. I'm a New York native, was born and raised there. My father was a Morehouse grad, so that meant that I was going to Morehouse. So I went to Morehouse in 1970, where I part of the marvelous class of 74. I did not graduate with them. I did my wilderness journey, doing various and sundry things, community organizing, teaching kindergarten, doing a whole bunch of things until God finally tapped me on the shoulder with a horrendous car accident that I got out of without a scratch. Told God he had my full, complete, and undivided attention. I began my journey at Friendship Baptist Church in Atlanta, but found my way over to the United Methodist Church, the church in which I was ordained, and subsequently had a 40-year vocational career as a minister in the United Methodist Church. I'm a retired pastor now, but I still spend my days and times working with congregations to establish strategic visions for community engagement and transformation. So that's about as brief as I can do it, my brother, as brief as I can do it. And I am just glad to be here today.
Well, that encapsulates, the perspective for us to explore. But you do know friendship was my great granddaddy's church, right? Okay. I just wanted y'all to know that. See, that's the basics for my brother, man. Hanging out with great granddad. And so, what was one of the things along the way working with the communities that brought you some of the most fulfillment? Being out there with the people. My sister in Atlanta calls me the people's reverend. So, what was it for you being out there hands on with community and organizing that brought you the most fulfillment?
Well, I think something that continues to bring me joy, and something that I think needs to be at the forefront of who we are and what we are in this day and time. And that is the sure and certain knowledge that there, but by the grace of God, go we. that we all share in a deep common experience of marginalization, isolation, and other things within the framework of the world in which we live in North America. And that we are to gather together, support one another, encourage one another. And others are very surprised when they find out that even though they have very little, sometimes almost nothing, they still have something to bring to the party. And when they are valued for their part in bringing God's kingdom into full view, you see them shine. And when you see them shine, that just brings you joy, because it ain't about you. It's really about them.
Yeah.
And, our history dictates that the only way that we have made it this far is by our leaning on one another. We are family, perhaps not of consanguination or blood, but we are family by spirit. And everybody remembers when Uncle Charlie used to sleep at our house, or we had a cousin that was sleeping at our house, or he and I were more like brothers than cousins because he lived with us. Or if you were in the South and you were a farmer, after you picked your crops, you always picked up some extra, and you took a whole bunch of greens down the block and you shared them with your neighbors. That is how we have managed to come this far. And in this day and time, when we are being once again marginalized and isolated, I think this is the time when we recognize that we really do need each other in significant ways.
And what's interesting to me is the way we're being marginalized and isolated is through the same means. They got this from us as we went through the development of processes and programs to move certain agendas forward during the 60s and early 70s. It's just our own stuff. But you know me, and you were talking about the closeness and what they call degrees of separation. Another Morehouse brother of ours, Clinton Evans, and I, we kind of reduced it from the 6 degrees to 0 degrees because it's a connection, whether it's by this or stepdad this, or did you know that uncle this was really this person who had the boogie down out the South because of this and that, and change his whole way of doing things and these kinds of things for a very rich history that's ours, no matter who tries to marginalize us. And to what degree is it our responsibility? Because now, like Stephanie the Major say, Bobby, we're the elders. Is it for us to pass these things down?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, as you point to this process of erasure, this is certainly not new.
Nothing new under the sun.
When we were brought here,
yeah,
the immediate initiative was to strip us as best they could of language and culture and kinship. That was the first. After emancipation, when the legalities of our inclusion were established constitutionally and otherwise, those things by the Supreme Court of that time in the 1800s stripped us of voting rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and continued the process over a lengthy period of time until the 1920s, 1930s, made caricatures of us that made us, some of us think that we were less than, but certainly the culture at large think that we were less than, which led, of course, to the giants of the Harlem Renaissance, who lifted the race through literature, music, and drama, and helped us reestablish a sense of self. But yeah, the things we have been through have certainly caused dysfunction, and our assimilation, the way we've kind of breathed in, drunk the Kool-Aid of the environment around us, has had us kind of normalize some of those values that help us not connect with one another.
Well, one of the things was we didn't get no counseling coming out of slavery, no help, no anything, and that in itself, regardless of what anybody feels about that, was a heck of a experience to leave one here, and now you on your own, quote unquote, equal with everybody else trying to survive. Which
Yeah.
was a recipe for disaster by design. But in knowing these things, because we know them and have probably taken responsibility in helping to shatter them, deal with them, prepare people to move through this life. That part, how does that make you feel, being a living part of the history, a living part of the movement forward? We were the answer to a lot of prayers, man, when we walked through them gates in 1970. Those things, what that do for you, brother?
I reflect on the fact that my formative educational journey, I came to the New York City public school system. And because of the vestiges of residential segregation, my elementary experience was pretty much all Black. So we were the community. The principal of my elementary school in the Bronx, I did not know this at the time, was my father's frat brother. I kept wondering how I got in trouble, and my daddy knew before I got home. I never figured that out.
I never put that together.
But I was selected to go to New York City's High School of Music and Art, and Music and Art was one of the specialized high schools in New York City, where 99 and 99 100s white, with white kids that had been taking private violin lessons since they were like 2. And I did not know how much I needed to be reinserted into a predominantly Black culture when I came to Morehouse. And I have told you and our classmates that you all really saved my life by helping me reestablish the connections, deep connections to my identity. Further, Morehouse was a place where we were taught in pretty much an Afrocentric environment, where we heard our stories, learned our stories. My favorite professor of that time was Gloria Wade Gales. I don't know if you took her or not, but she taught African American lit. So in that literature are our souls and stories. So we have the responsibility, just like the African griots in the village, of telling those stories and bringing our kids back, and the dividing line, it seems to me, was the push for integration. We wanted to be able to insert ourselves into the larger culture, be accepted, have the same values, have the same adventures, blah, blah, blah. But even in his later days,
not the same values. Oh, no.
Well, I mean, you drink the Kool-Aid,
I'm just
and,
messing with
and
you.
that's that red Kool-Aid. You ever
I'm
drink
just
red Kool-Aid?
messing with you. I'm just messing.
Red Kool-Aid stains everything. You
I
can't
know.
get it out. You wash it, it's still pink. But uh, you know, Martin said, I don't know, but that I have invited my people into a burning house. I think he was rethinking some of the values of having been done that. So, we need to tell those stories to our children, to our grandchildren. We need to write them down. We need to talk to our elders. We are elders. I am trying my best right now to write a little book, just to capture that so that my kids will have some connection to the journey. And, my father's side of the family was from the deep South, from Savannah, Georgia. And there was dysfunction there. And until I figured that out, I couldn't figure out my relationship with my father, which was very broken for a long time. And the last stop, and I'll stop here, is I went to seminary at Gammon Theological Seminary in the ITC, the Interdenominational Theological Center. And that's where they told the story of the Black church. Mm-hmm. And the Black church is the seminal place where the things where you were talking about when we were just set free, didn't know where we were going, what we were going to do, how we were going to survive. That was the focal point for a community of common goods where people could come together, encourage and support each other. So I think that in this day and time, when people are moving away from church, I think this is the time where our people in particular will begin to gravitate back towards being part of that community.
Well, it was the like you said, the glue. It was the glue of the community, the church, and to whatever level of free educational stuff with the teachers were. That was our stuff. That was the basis of our community. But as I grew up and I watched things during the time when the integration was going on here, and the piece that I know most of us see but wonder how it happened, but don't really wonder because we could take our money out the neighborhood now. Man, all the supper clubs and the little motels, places to stay because people couldn't stay nowhere else. The little hotel places.
Greenbook, sir. Greenbook.
Yeah. On the south side where you could stay, but y'all don't go over there where the Eshmael Daily lived and stuff. Don't get me lightning. But up here too, and played a significant part in our lives. And what kind of stuff is built into us to be able to continue to go on and continue to excel when ever given a chance for an opportunity, or making ourselves a chance for an opportunity more than anything else.
I think that we are well able. And, I don't think we tell enough of the stories of Black philanthropy and how we create space for children to succeed. And once again, I go back to the Black church. I remember way back in the day, our kids, our youth were always part of the service. There was always a youth Sunday where one of our kids gave the message that day, and they began to image themselves as somebody could be out front, who could lead, who people would listen to, and where they received encouragement to do that, and where we would pool our little resources so that they could help pay their tuition. I recall that when my father went to Morehouse, those were the days when faculty members would give up part of their salary to make sure that the students' tuition was paid, or would open their homes to make sure that students have some place to stay. There is an element of sacrifice in this, but it's a sacrifice where we pay forward to the next gen. I was reading a recent article where it was focused on Howard University, where Howard is now like 80% female student body. So where are the brothers? Morehouse is different and singular because it's a male institution. So we have pride in the fact that we're putting forward a next good generation of leadership. But that is not the case overall. There is merit in the argument that not everybody is supposed to go to college, but people do have gifts.
Absolutely.
And they need to be able to develop those gifts,
Yes.
both to provide a living for themselves, but also to make a difference in the community. The scriptures are, well, it's a very brief reference in the book of Acts, where this new fledgling Christian community was a community of common goods. People came and gave if they had and took if they needed. Some tried to skirt the process and fell down dead. And I think that's when everybody said, whoa, I don't know if I'm into this or not. But, I think it's a model for us to know and understand.
Well, most of the stuff contained in that piece of work is, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the ethos of the kingdom. And I think that is the way, we are called to prefigure the kingdom. In other words, we're supposed to act now as if it's then.
Absolutely, because we're, not building something that's already there, but recognizing that and living in it, embodied, in it as best as we can.
Mm-hmm.
As best as we can, and we're able to, which brings us another sense of fulfillment and joy along the journey. And how do the relationships that you build along the way, Sonny, play in your satisfaction and fulfillment of how you decided that you wanted to be and treat people and that kind of stuff? Have you come close to making that a reality?
Oh, certainly.
Because you're a rascal, but you're a nice dude.
I tried to be. During those days when I should not have gone to school when I did, because I was one of those students where I could do if you put your foot in my behind, but if you weren't there to chase me all the time and push me and make me do, so when I got to Morehouse, I exited with a 1.9 average. So, but here's the relational part. I met a fellow on the basketball courts down there behind the dorms. His name was Larry Washington. Never forget him. Larry was a city student. And if you remember, on Sundays, we didn't get no dinner.
Right. We got apple.
We got a brown paper bag, right, with some curled up bread and some curled up meat, and said, have a nice life.
Yeah.
Well, Larry said, oh, no, come home with me. And so on Sundays, I would go home with him, and his mama would put it on, dude. If it was collard greens and mac and cheese, I said, yeah, this will work.
I know, right?
Work. And when I finally flunked out and really had no place to go, his family said, no. Our grandmother is back with her sister in South Carolina. you can live in her house. You see what happens here?
Yeah.
And they are my family.
Yeah.
And I tell them all the time, I appreciate them because you saved my life. You gave me, and that's another one of those things where we say, that's a lesson we need to learn and look out for. So when we see young people on the edge, we say, son, come here,
Right.
come to my table.
Right.
Have some collard greens, son. You look thin and weaselly.
You look a little peaky there,
yeah,
boy.
little peaky there. Get you some oxtails. Get you but here's the other thing they did. They said, you too bright to be sitting out here doing nothing.
That part.
Get your back in school.
That part.
So, that's when I went to Georgia State, 5 hours at a time, until I finally got my degree. So that's the model of all of us caring for each other, that we have to embrace and lift up and look for opportunities for us to be that safe space for people who are on the edge. I think the Surgeon General has certainly said that perhaps the number one illness in America is loneliness and isolation. We don't need to be isolated from one another. That's part of the Kool-Aid we have drunk. You have to be the strong, silent, self-sufficient type. But that differs from the Western notion that we got from Descartes. Descartes said, "Cogito ergo sum," I think because I am, singular. But the African proverb says, "I am because we are."
We are, right.
And apart from us, I am not.
Yeah, yeah.
So that sense of inclusion, of embrace, of encouragement is what we ought to be striving for day by day. My God. The reason I appreciate you and I and the others to which we are grafted is, 50 years later, we are still connected. And we still pray for one another, encourage one another, look after one another. As you know, I recently had a knee replacement.
Right.
I had brothers from the class calling, sending cards, knowing that I am not alone on this journey, provided a healing energy for me.
But see, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And see, you were saying some things earlier about the people may not have anything like personal possessions or these kinds of things, but they created this atmosphere with themselves of, love and comfort and whatever it is I don't have, you won't have none either. But come here, with the arms open. And I think that's kind of intrinsic, as you were saying, the difference of just the genre of black and different things. Nobody's a bad person or nothing, but just how we've been. There's a lot to be with it, with the way we was brought up to. I think have you seen that too?
Yeah, with the caveat, that this psychic trauma that many of us have somewhere down the line, one place or another, injures us, and sometimes makes us feel less than and not worthy. It is played out on my father's side of the family. Um, he had two sisters that pretty much he had to raise, because my grandmother, she had three kids, three different daddies, all kinds of, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of psychic trauma plays itself out.
Yeah.
We have to be able to create safe space enough for them to kind of work through that trauma and reclaim their self awareness and self value. Because the way that our religion speaks to us, that we are not valued because of our vocation. We are valued because of justification. We are valued because God loves us deeply, fully, and surround. So we have intrinsic value as children of God, from the least to the last to the all. All of us have a place, and we need to make space for that kind of thing.
That's all inclusive. And when people say things aren't perfect, I said yes, they are, because perfection is all inclusiveness. You include it all, upside down, round, everything, because we still gotta walk it through. Brother Clarence, I thank you for this time you have shared with me and the people this morning. I'm gonna get you to come back. I know I will, now that you are comfortable and everything, and all is well. But people, don't forget, subscribe. Gospel of Robert, capital GOSPELOF, capital ROBERT. Put the @ in front. Go to the page and subscribe. But from myself and Brother Clarence Brown, we pray, we hope, we wish, we demand from the universe that all of us journey well from here. Peace. Tell them bye, Clarence.
Bye.